Have you ever felt like everything around you suddenly shifted and you couldn't explain why? When misfortunes pile up like a chain of dominoes, do you catch yourself wondering, maybe I'm just imagining things, but what if it's not random at all? What if it's a sign that something unseen is interfering? Many people still think witchcraft is just fairy tales, broomsticks, bubbling cauldrons, and strange incantations. But today, magic no longer shows up in old-fashioned ways. It's more subtle, more silent, and far more dangerous. What we're facing now is a kind of spiritual warfare, cleverly disguised as ordinary life. Like that one friend who never forgets how much you owe them, but always disappears when it's their turn to pay. That uneasiness you feel might not be paranoia. It might be a warning. In today's video, I'll reveal 5 clear signs that someone might be using dark energy or spiritual manipulation against you. Sounds superstitious, it's not. These are repeatable patterns that often emerge right before your peace vanishes, your relationships unravel, and your luck turns against you. The good news, you can protect yourself once you know what to look for. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because this may be the wake-up call you've been waiting for. It's time to pull back the curtain and see what's really going on. Sin, one sudden negative patterns begin to appear in your life. This isn't just regular bad luck. It's too targeted, too precise to be explained by chance or logic. Take Thomas, for example. He wasn't superstitious. A quiet, steady man in his 50s who believed in hard work. He had built his career, his marriage, and his reputation from the ground up. To him, if something broke, you fix it. If life got hard, you work harder. That was his way. Until suddenly, everything started to fall apart in ways he couldn't explain. At first, it was subtle. His steady stream of clients vanished almost overnight. Emails went unanswered. 2 deals that were nearly finalized collapsed. In the same week, then came the technical glitches. His phone would die in the middle of important calls. His laptop froze during critical presentations. At first, he blamed it on aging exhaustion or even Mercury retrograde. But it didn't stop there. Thomas, who had always been healthy, began experiencing dizziness and constant fatigue. He went to multiple doctors. The tests all normal. So what was really happening to Thomas up next? Well, explore the second sign, and you'll see none of this is mere coincidence. Thomas never imagined that the worst would strike just before things were about to get better. His life didn't just unravel, it collapsed in ways that defied logic. Doctors said it was probably just stress. But then his wife, his longtime partner, his closest ally began to change. Their conversations turned cold, filled with tension he couldn't explain. She started accusing him of things he never said, never did. Arguments sparked out of nowhere and ended in silence. A silence that hung heavy like winter without sunlight. And that wasn't the end of it. Even his dog, once inseparable from him, refused to sleep in the same room. It felt like the entire world was quietly retreating from Thomas leaving, him trapped in a distorted version of reality. And the scariest part, there was no rational explanation. Everything that used to run smoothly, his work, finances, health, even marriage, began to fall apart in just a matter of weeks. Strangely, all of it happened right before something good was about to occur. A call from a new client, his phone dies unexpectedly. A romantic evening planned, she cancels in tears, confused and overwhelmed. Breakthrough opportunity, something inexplicably sabotages it before it materializes. This isn't normal bad luck. This is spiritual sabotage. And in the modern world, witchcraft doesn't wear a black cloak or chant in the woods. Sometimes it shows up as a smile, a wish it might sit at your dinner table. It might come from the person you'd least suspect. Sounds far-fetched. Thomas' story is not unique. What matters most is recognizing the pattern, not just the misfortunes, but the timing. How these disruptions always seem to strike what you value most right before you're about to receive it. A Stoic would say observe, do not react. Marcus Aurelius believed that the first line of defense against invisible enemies is a mind clear enough to see what is not what appears to be. And this is where Thomas failed. Instead of stepping back to see clearly, he struggled harder. He tried to fix problems that weren't his to fix. And in doing so, he fed the storm. If you see yourself in Thomas's story, if your own life has quietly unraveled without reason, don't dismiss it as just bad luck. Start observing. Start documenting. What changed and when, who entered your life, and what started falling apart after that. The truth is, nothing collapses without a cause. Not every hardship is witchcraft, but when setbacks consistently target your progress, your joy, your light, your breakthroughs, it's time to pay attention. Because, as the Stoics taught us, awareness is your first and strongest shield. Don't wait until everything is lost to wake up. Be alert while there's still something left to protect. So what's the next sign? It doesn't come from outside. It begins right inside the space around you. When you start doubting your own emotions and body, that's when you need to pause and pay close attention. In the previous section, we talked about the sudden unraveling of life without any clear reason or logical explanation. But there is a sign, even more unsettling, when the attack doesn't come from outside but begins within you. Sign to unusual physical and emotional symptoms. This is one of the most disorienting signs, because it doesn't appear in the physical world. At first, it starts quietly slipping inside, manifesting as vague, heart-deafening sensations. Exhaustion, sadness, anxiety, confusion, and no matter what you do, these feelings simply won't go away. You go to doctors, take tests, and everything comes back normal. But deep down, you know something isn't right. That's exactly what happened to Amanda, a 38-year-old yoga instructor, full of life, deeply in tune with both her body and her spirit. Her days used to begin with sunrise meditations and end with calming evening walks. But in just a few short months, everything changed. Amanda began feeling drained just hours into her day. She cancelled classes regularly, collapsing into bed as if something was pulling the energy out of her. Her limbs felt like stone. Her once-sharp mind grew slow and cloudy. Those around her began to notice clients, loved ones, even her beloved dog, no longer followed her around like before. Then the emotional symptoms set in. Amanda, once joyful and playful, now cried without reason. Waves of sadness came crashing down like heavy storm clouds. She became overly sensitive, jumpy, anxious, especially in her own bedroom, which had once been a peaceful sanctuary. But the worst part, the dreams, vivid, repetitive, terrifying, always the same, a shadowy figure staring at her, whispering something she could never quite remember. Yet every time she woke up, Amanda was drenched in cold sweat. She turned to doctors, therapists, even holistic healers. Nothing worked. Antidepressants were ineffective. Sleep aids didn't help. Even coffee, her usual source of morning clarity, did nothing. Amanda once described it like this: "It feels like something outside of me is draining my energy slowly, deliberately." She told a friend in moments like this, you start to wonder if you're going crazy. But your body, your intuition, they know better. The philosopher Epictetus once said, if someone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, respond, "He was unaware of my other faults, or he would have mentioned them as well." In other words, when something's wrong, face it. Don't make excuses. Don't look away. Especially when the enemy isn't visible, but is clearly present. And then, Amanda noticed something strange. Whenever she left her house, all her symptoms vanished, completely so. What exactly was dwelling in her home in the next section we'll explore. Sign 3, where the disturbance doesn't just live inside you. It begins to seep into your environment. You won't want to miss it. Everything became clearer the moment Amanda left the place she once called home. What was meant to be a short weekend getaway to Arizona turned into something far more, a doorway to truth. In the dry air and warm sun of the American Southwest, Amanda began to feel like herself again. She laughed more, slept deeply. The anxiety vanished like it had never been there. But strangely, just hours after returning home, the heaviness, fatigue, and fear came crashing back like a cold wave. And every time it happened after one specific encounter. A former co-worker, a woman Amanda once considered a friend who over time had grown distant, jealous, and oddly curious about Amanda's personal life. Once that woman gave Amanda a small gift, a tiny charm that Amanda assumed was just a harmless souvenir. But now, after everything she had been through, Amanda dug it out of a drawer and looked at it with entirely different eyes. And in that moment, everything clicked. She began the journey to take her life back, cleansing her space, cutting off toxic connections, and slowly Amanda began to reclaim the energy that had been drained from her. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And what Amanda finally understood was this: the real attack wasn't physical. It was spiritual. Her mind, her emotions, her sense of self had all been infiltrated without her realizing it. That's exactly what modern-day witchcraft aims for. It doesn't strike the body, it targets the source, the inner well from which your life flows. It poisons that well until you can no longer see your own light. If you're experiencing something similar, do not dismiss it. Start documenting everything what you feel, patterns you notice, the people who show up, and what begins to fall apart after they do. Stoic philosophy teaches us observe constantly, for all things are in motion. But not all change is natural. Some change isn't growth, it's manipulation. And only with clarity, calm, steady, fearless clarity, can you begin to see the invisible threads wrapped around your life. Because ultimately your greatest shield is not fear, it's awareness. And once you see clearly, that's when the healing begins. Sign 3 strange objects and unusual arrangements. This may be the easiest sign to overlook, but it's also the most visible. Unlike emotions or health symptoms which are hard to define, this one can be seen with the naked eye. Have you ever noticed something odd in a familiar space? An object that wasn't there before, a strange smell in a room, items arranged in a way that doesn't make sense. This is what many call the smoking gun of spiritual warfare. Across cultures and centuries, people have used physical objects to transmit energy, sometimes for healing, but also for harm. According to research by anthropologist Ronald Hutton, over 70 of traditional spiritual attacks involve a specific object, often hidden in or near the target's living space. And these aren't ancient relics or exotic artifacts. They're ordinary things: string, coins, leaves, animal bones, broken glass, ashes. To the untrained eye, they look like trash. But to those who understand their tools used to bind, confuse, or weaken your spiritual defenses. And modern witchcraft, it thrives on one powerful weapon: camouflage. In the next part, we'll take a deeper look at these objects. How can you tell what's harmless and what's a warning sign? And more importantly, what should you do if you find one? Stay tuned, because from here on out, the truth begins to reveal itself. Modern witchcraft no longer looks like haunted temples or pentagrams drawn in blood. It's more subtle, more silent, and closer than you think. It could be a small piece of cloth tucked under your doormat, an old photo of you, one you didn't even know was missing, burned around the edges and hidden behind a picture frame, a potted plant that dies no matter how many times you move it, or a familiar piece of jewelry that suddenly feels heavy, cold, like it's draining your energy rather than adorning you. These items only become significant when you notice where they're placed. Doorways, hallways, thresholds. These are energetically sensitive places, points of transition where energy flows most powerfully. Witchcraft often targets these in-between spaces to anchor intention, because energy is easiest to manipulate where movement happens. Another common target: the bedroom, especially under the bed or inside the mattress. Why? Because that's when you're most vulnerable, unconscious, unguarded, unaware. Exactly when you're the easiest to influence. Another favorite spot: your car. It may seem private, but it's one of the easiest places to plant something. An unfamiliar item hidden under the seat, in the glove box or trunk, can cause ongoing unease, distraction, even danger. Stoic philosophy never spoke directly about curses or spells, but it has always warned us: never take your peace for granted. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That means what blocks your energy, your clarity, your progress isn't something to dismiss. It's a message. And your job isn't to panic, it's to meet it with calm awareness and steady perception. These objects aren't powerful because of what they are. They're powerful because of the intention embedded within them. Just like a phone doesn't generate its own signal, it only receives it. These items are conduits. They carry frequency, emotion, direction, and when that energy is hostile, it can creep into your mind, drain your body, and disturb your emotional balance. So the answer isn't fear, it's observation. If you've ruled out stress, illness, or grief, and still feel out of alignment, start inspecting your environment. Don't just look, feel. If something in your space gives you chills, suffocates your breath, or causes a strange sense of dread, that's not paranoia. That's your intuition. And intuition is the oldest survival tool our ancestors passed down. Epictetus once reminded, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." In other words, if you change your perspective, if you begin to consider that your living space might be energetically compromised, you're no longer lost in confusion. You're empowered to respond. And if you do come across something suspicious, do not touch it with your bare hands. In the next part, we'll explore how to safely deal with these objects, and the first steps to reclaiming your energy and your authority over your own space. Keep watching, because from here on, you don't have to live in the dark anymore. If you discover a strange object in your home, it's not just a sign, it's evidence. And how you respond to it will determine what happens next. When dealing with an object you suspect carries harmful intent, never touch it with your bare hands. Use gloves, tools, or anything that can safely distance you from whatever energy may have been embedded within it. If possible, burn it or dispose of it far from your home, ideally into running water or buried deep in the earth, where its energy can be neutralized and returned to nature. Then cleanse your space. Use salt sound, smoke, or whatever method aligns with your spiritual beliefs. Not because it's mystical, because it's intentional. An intention, especially when carried out with clarity, has the power to shatter hidden agendas. Understanding this third sign is a turning point, because it offers something the previous signs didn't: physical proof. And when darkness appears, most stoic response isn't panic, it's calm, grounded action. You don't need to believe in witchcraft to feel its effects. But once you start to see, you owe it to yourself to protect what's yours. Yours, your energy, your clarity, your peace. Ask yourself, have you ever experienced something like this? Leave a comment below. Just say yes or no. Your story might shine a light. For someone else, sign for sudden changes in relationships. This is the most painful sign, the most personal, and the hardest to explain. It's not a friendship that fades over time, not a relationship that cools slowly. It's a collapse, swift and unexplainable, like someone just flipped a switch and cut the connection. Marcus Aurelius once said, "When someone treats you poorly, remember, they're acting according to their own principles, not yours." And that's exactly what happened to Caroline. She was a therapist, a deeply rational person who trusted science and emotional logic. Someone who never believed in anything supernatural. But over the course of one long autumn, her entire emotional support system seemed to fall apart. It began with her best friend of 15 years, who suddenly stopped returning her calls. Then came the shift from her colleagues, people she had mentored for years. They began excluding her from meetings, lunches, and casual conversations. Caroline approached it calmly, asking respectful questions, but no one offered a clear answer. Just one cold phrase: "Things have changed." Changed how no one would say she sent. Emails, no replies. Worse, her messages were misunderstood. A kind check-in was seen as passive. A supportive comment was twisted into criticism. And the deepest blow, her younger brother, the one who once called her his rock, suddenly cut off all contact. No argument, no incident, just silence, abandonment, and heartbreak. In the next section, you'll begin to understand why our closest relationships often become the primary targets of invisible attacks, and how to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Stay tuned, because sometimes a relationship doesn't break from the heart. It breaks from a dark intention quietly planted in the shadows. When isolation comes without reason, it's not just sadness, it might be a sign of a hidden attack. After days of being shut out, Caroline began to doubt herself. She asked, "Am I really changing? Did I hurt someone?" Without realizing it, she went back through every conversation, every email, every message, searching for a clue, a mistake, anything to make sense of it. But there was nothing. And yet, one by one, the people who had once been close, her support system, started pulling away from her, as if some invisible mark had been placed on her name. This kind of vague mass withdrawal, especially when there's no clear cause, is one of the cruelest. Signs of energetic manipulation or spiritual interference. In many ancient cultures, this was considered one of the darkest forms of witchcraft, not because it caused physical pain, but because it shattered human connection. This kind of energy doesn't attack your body. It attacks your place in the world. It erodes people's trust in you. It whispers doubts into their ears. It clouds memory. It plants suspicion, like poison ivy, subtle at first, then suffocating. And the scariest part, people you love start acting like strangers, distant, cold, even hostile for no apparent reason. Their words become twisted, their reactions strangely intense and disproportionate. Suddenly you feel like you only have two choices: lash out in anger or retreat into silence. Unfortunately, both responses only make the isolation worse. The Stoics understood this long ago. They taught that we cannot control the thoughts of others, and suffering often begins when we cling to what is already slipping away. Epictetus reminded us, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will find peace. But more important than letting go, Stoicism teaches us to observe without being consumed. So if your relationships are suddenly falling apart for no clear reason, don't chase. Don't beg. Pay close attention. When did the shift begin? Who entered your life around that time? Was something new brought into your space, your body, your mind? Of confusion, Caroline finally found the thread. She remembered a meditation group she had joined. What she thought was a space for healing turned out to be where everything began to unravel. One woman in that group had taken a strangely intense interest in her. She often gave gifts, crystal bracelets, herbal teas, incense, energy stones. At first, Caroline thought it was just kindness. But over time, the energy around her began to feel heavy. The bracelet she wore daily started giving her splitting headaches. And when Caroline began to ask deeper questions about energy rituals, intentions, the group's leader turned cold and distant. Eventually, Caroline stepped away for good. She cleared out her space, removing everything she had received from the group. And then, things began to shift. Her brother called. Her old friend sent an email. A light breeze seemed to return. The fog began to lift. If you've ever felt exiled from your own circle with no explanation, if you've lived with honesty but people continually misunderstand you, if others look at you but no longer seem to see you, consider the possibility that something is interfering with the cords that connect you to the world. In the next section, we'll explore the final sign where dark energy no longer hides in the shadows but begins to strike directly at the most important moments in your life. This is where your strength must become unshakable. The most insidious attacks don't wound you directly, they turn the world against you and leave you wondering, what did I do wrong? Witchcraft doesn't always break your heart by hurting you. It's more ruthless. It turns the hearts of others against you, and that is the most terrifying kind of isolation. In moments like these, stoic strength isn't about holding on tighter. It's about stepping back and seeing clearly, seeing that who you are is not defined by the confused perceptions of others who are temporarily lost. They may return, but only after you reclaim your own clarity. Awareness is protection, and compassion, even from a distance, is the antidote to every curse. If you know someone who's going through something similar, send them this video. It might just change their life. Sign 5: Intuitive warnings and mysterious mental disturbances. Did you know that in over 90% of near-death experiences, people report having sensed that something was about to happen even before it did? A quiet feeling, a wordless intuition. Modern science still struggles to explain it. But for thousands of years, spiritual traditions have considered it sacred, an internal guidance system we're all born with. That's your intuition, the soft voice within you that tries to speak before danger arrives. This final sign isn't something you'll see, it's something you'll feel. A slight furrow of the brow, a subtle unease, a sudden chill in the chest before your rational mind can catch up. And that's what makes this sign both the subtlest and the most powerful, because it doesn't come from outside, it rises from within. This is the built-in warning system you were born with, a quiet intelligence that whispers even when the world outside is smiling. You may have experienced this before walking into a room and suddenly the air feels heavy, like something's pressing on your chest. Someone speaks calmly, yet your skin prickles. You avoid a certain corner, a chair, a hallway, not because of logic, but because every time you pass by your breath shortens. That's not fear. That's awareness. The Stoics taught us to trust reason, but they never told us to ignore instinct. Marcus Aurelius once said the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He understood that our inner world speaks in ways beyond words. And when your soul begins to darken, when your thoughts turn heavy for no reason, when places that once brought peace now stir unease, that's not coincidence, that's a signal. Intuitive warnings often come in dreams. Nightmares where you're chased, restrained, or watched. Familiar faces turning cold, distorted, unfamiliar. Repeating symbols or scenarios that feel like more than stress, they feel like visitations. Because in sleep, when your mind is no longer distracted, spiritual attacks can reveal themselves more easily. In the final chapter to come, we'll revisit everything and ask, how do you reconnect with your intuition? What do you do when these signs start appearing in your life? Be ready, because healing begins the moment you dare to face the truth. Maybe you've had strange dreams before and told yourself it's just a dream. But your body, it doesn't forget. You wake up with a heaviness in your chest. You feel like something from the dream followed you into waking life. If that sounds familiar, don't dismiss it. Listen, many people under spiritual attack describe a clear shift. They lose connection to the very spiritual practices that once brought them peace. Meditation once. A refuge now feels uncomfortable. Prayer, once grounding, feels blocked. Sacred spaces start to feel foreign, even invaded. Purposeful living begins to dissolve, as if crushed by an unseen weight. The Stoics believed anything that clouds the mind or disturbs the souls. Clarity must be observed closely, never ignored. Epictetus once said, first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. In this context, what you must protect is your stillness, your spiritual strength, your inner compass, and the biggest mistake is to treat intuitive signals like mere imagination. Don't wait for proof that comes too late. Start documenting. Write down your emotions, your dreams, your triggers, the things that spark discomfort. Track the patterns. When do these feelings arise? Who's around you at the time? What has changed in your space, your body, or your mind? Over time, patterns will emerge. And with those patterns comes understanding. Intuition is not weakness. It's not paranoia. It is your first line of defense in an energetic world. And when you connect this sign to the others, prolonged misfortune, physical, emotional disturbances, strange objects appearing, broken relationships, the picture becomes clear. Something is disrupting your peace. From here, your response must be intentional. Cleanse your space, regularly with sage sound or salt. Carry grounding stones like obsidian or black tourmaline. Visualize a protective light around your body, especially when walking into spaces that feel heavy. These rituals aren't superstition. They are ancient traditions created to restore balance. In a world that easily falls into chaos. And above all, remember, the enemy's greatest weapon is invisibility. But once you see it, once you feel it, you take back control. The Stoics taught us we can't control external events, but we can always control how we respond. Within that choice lies your true power. Let your intuition guide you. Let awareness shield you, and let clarity become the sword that protects you. So now, how many of these signs felt a little too familiar? 1, 2, or all? 5. If your heart is screaming yes, this explains everything, don't ignore that feeling, because witchcraft isn't just a spooky bedtime story. It's real. Witchcraft operates in silence, and it works best when you don't yet realize it. But now you know. You've recognized the signs. You've felt the strange shifts in the energy around you, and in this very moment your healing journey begins. Remember this, your peace is not up for negotiation. Your energy is not public property for anyone to tamper with, and your intuition is the built-in security system the universe gave you. Never disable it just to make things seem more rational. If this video opened your eyes, don't just disappear into the algorithm. Do this instead. Like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join a growing community of souls who refuse to live in the dark. Because this video isn't just about witchcraft. It's about reclaiming your power, protecting your sacred space, living life on your own terms, and yes, finally sleeping through the night without feeling like someone's watching you from the corner of the room. I am reclaiming my light. If you're ready to step out of the fog, if you want to live in clarity, in light, in power, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are awakening, and now is the time for us to rise, to step into the light, and protect the peace we rightfully deserve. We are the flame, and no one has the right to extinguish us.